Hello and welcome back to my channel. I've been wanting to sew up some more quilt blocks for a while and finally I got around to it. While looking for different patterns to make, I came across a video about quilt blocks used during antebellum times in the United States that were used in support of the Underground Railroad. So, in celebration of Black History Month, I chose to make 3 blocks believed to have assisted enslaved people to prepare for freedom. While this video will not be a tutorial, you can follow along with the steps shown in the video or refer to proper video tutorials I list in the description box. In this video, I'll be talking more about the history of the quilt as well as the different quilt codes and their meanings. For more background and context, I borrowed an ebook by Jacqueline Tobin and Raymond Dobart called Hidden in Plain View: A Secret Story of Quilts and the Underground Railroad from my library. The authors explore the idea that enslaved people and those helping them used quilts to convey coded messages to navigate the Underground Railroad. The book is based on the oral history of Ozella McDaniel Williams, an African-American woman from South Carolina, who shared a family story about how quilt patterns contain secret messages guiding enslaved people to freedom. The authors analyzed different quilt designs, interpreting their meanings as signals for preparation, escape routes, and safe houses. It remains an influential and widely discussed work, blending folklore, African American history, and textile traditions. While the book popularized the quilt code theory, it has faced criticism due to a lack of historical documentation. However, given the very necessarily secretive business of escaping and helping people escape, I can understand how it might be difficult to find evidence of these quilt codes, as people probably wouldn't have documented them at the time due to secrecy. However, I believe there were secret forms of communication during that time, and using quilt codes seems a plausible and creative way to communicate. There are believed to have been 10 quilt codes: monkey wrench, wagon wheel, bear's paw, crossroads, log cabin, shoe fly, bow ties, flying geese, drunkard's path, and star. In this video, I made 3 of the 10. The first block I made is called the monkey wrench block. One might find this block also called double monkey wrench or churn dash block. The monkey wrench block, when used for quilts in the Underground Railroad, conveyed the message that enslaved people were supposed to begin preparing for their journey to freedom by collecting not only physical but also mental tools. Physical tools could include things like a compass, knife, food, and money to help along the journey. Mental tools for preparation could mean collecting cunning, alertness, discernment, and knowledge. The monkey wrench in those times was a tool used by blacksmiths on the plantation. It could also have represented a knowledgeable person on the plantation that would be able to relay messages throughout the community and someone who had some influence in multiple spheres. The book says that this is often the first quilt pattern displayed to signal to enslaved people it's time to prepare for the journey. I find significance in this meaning today because sometimes in life we get signs that it is time for a change or to make a move. Maybe things at your job aren't working out. You need to start gathering tools like a resume, recommendations, and new skills to prepare for a new job. Perhaps your relationship is rocky. You need to make sure you're financially stable and have the right support system in place in case you need to break it off. This quilt block reminds me that sometimes we are given foresight to upcoming changes and the chance to gather necessary tools for the journey. Sometimes, if the change is sudden and you aren't prepared physically or mentally, the change could have a more devastating and unnerving effect on you. The takeaway is to be alert and sensitive to hints or signs of changes in your life so you can prepare as much as possible. The next block I made was the North Star block. This may be known today as the Sawtooth or Evening Star block. The North Star is a more obvious symbol of the journey of enslaved people to freedom, as most everyone knows that the path to freedom for most people in the South was to the north, towards Canada. So the North Star represented the direction to follow in the Underground Railroad. Back then, people often looked at the stars and constellations and mapped them for directions. Star maps were used both for land and sea travel. Following the constellations was a method used for navigation in boats, which, unlike common ideas of the Underground Railroad, were an integral part to the whole enterprise. For this block, I used a scrap of Star Wars fabric and a scrap of batik fabric that matched the color scheme well. The Star Wars was in reference to the North Star shape, but also to the fact that during antebellum times as well as today, there was and is a battle between a good or moral side and an evil side, just like the Jedi versus the Sith. The Underground Railroad had the support of abolitionists who were against slavery, which was at the time legal in the South. I think we can all agree that slavery was an evil institution that should have been abolished, and thankfully, for the most part, it was abolished, thanks to the work of abolitionists and people who decided to free themselves. Likewise, today and throughout time, there are forces that would have us hate each other, that would lie about their real intentions, and use their power and influence for personal gain at the expense of millions of lives and livelihoods. Likewise, people on the side of justice have to resist in any way that they can, as well as support those who have been oppressed. So this quilt block reminds me that the North Star represents a better way of life and that we must not stop resisting the evil forces. The last block I made was the bow tie block. This block may also be known as the hourglass block. The bow tie block instructed fugitive enslaved people to not only change their clothes but also to disguise themselves. Enslaved people, of course, didn't usually have the nicest clothes to wear, and along the escape route, those clothes would become dirty and more tattered, potentially giving their status away to anyone who sees them. Along the journey, escaping people would probably meet up with free blacks or others who were helping them to get an exchange of clothing. When escaped people changed their clothes, they were able to also disguise themselves by blending in with the crowd and not standing out. This enabled them to increase their chances of staying free. For this block, I used thrifted denim and a fancy green and gold fabric for the bow ties. I like the juxtaposition of these materials, as the fancy fabric means we should dress up and look the part of wherever we see ourselves in the future. The denim represents hard work that it will take to make sure we get to where we need to go. I also like that the gold in the hourglass blocks are falling, showing that time is passing every day. We can't let time slip by too fast. We must make the most of the time we have. The bow tie block is also similar to the Congo cosmogram, with its 4 moments of the sun, where the triangular quadrants indicate morning, midday, evening, and night. Again, emphasizing the limited amount of time we have to achieve our goals and dreams. The 4 moments reminds me to make the most of each part of my day, including to prioritize rest, in order to increase my chances of success and freedom. I made all of these blocks using scrap fabric that I had around the house. And while I don't plan to use these particular blocks in a full quilt later, there are some ideas that I have that I could use these blocks for. For example, I could apply these blocks to garments like sweaters or jackets as an applique, or I could attach them to canvas to hang up as pieces of art around the house. If I did that, I would attach the names of each block as a reminder of the meaning of these blocks in the Underground Railroad. In the future, when I do make my full first quilt, I think I will use one of these block codes as the base and make it more meaningful that way. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly enjoyed making this video and learning about this historical lesson related to quilting. It made me think of what my ancestors may have had to endure and the creative ways they resisted and made room for their own dreams in the midst of oppression. It reminds me that if they did it before, then we can do it again. Thanks for watching.